There are a lot of like big brother memories that I have just from being 7 years younger than him. He was like the guy that I kind of looked up to, but it wasn't in the sense of like athletics or anything like that. It was kind of like, I remember a couple things that are similar, like skateboarding, and when he started weightlifting and I started like weightlifting, I would kind of follow him around, and I remember being just like kind of entrenched in the way that he was going about things, because I didn't have anybody else that I could really look to. Like, my father is way older than me, and it's a different situation when you're following your father around, but following my brother around was like, I kind of tried to stay out of his way sometimes because I didn't want to annoy him. I felt bad. Like, I didn't want to be like the annoying little brother that you have to push off your back all the time, but there were so many times I remember just like not being really his shadow, but following him around and like watching him. I don't know why I can remember the skateboarding thing, but I remember we were skateboarding in the driveway, and there are times I'm just like kind of standing there holding my skateboard. I'm not even moving, just watching him skateboard with him and his buddies. So there are a lot of situations like that where I just remember I look at it now from like almost like an outside perspective. I'm probably sitting there like with my mouth open, just watching him do his thing. But there's so many memories that are like that are from when I'm young, and it's not really, it wasn't really memories that I have like engaging with him, so to say, but like watching him and trying to figure things out when I was just a little boy.
Wonderful stuff. Tell me about his personality prior, was he
When we were growing up, he really was like the life of all of the parties, and I think it was his way of being social. He was really sarcastic, really outgoing, and he always had a knack for like referring to movies and TV shows, and like he can rattle off quotes, like, and nobody, like, sometimes you didn't know what movie he was even referencing, but just the way he engaged in it was hilarious. And I remember so many times like that, and even more recently, before he passed, he was like, when he was in his real state and I guess sober, you would see that part of him. Like, he would come in the house and like just rattle something off quick and funny, and he was outgoing. And then I think those were one of the biggest like telltale signs that I could tell that when things weren't right. It was like that wasn't part of his personality. But
did you ever feel, did it ever come to a point that you were aware of when you thought you felt pretty hopeless? Or did you always have hope through it?
I think that was like the most difficult thing, to have hope, because there were so many times, like there was literally one time, maybe 5 years ago, he overdosed in the garage, and we went out and barely got there in time. They had to Narcan him, but I went out there, my mom ran in here and she was like, "You need to come help me." Like, she, not way more dramatic than that, she was screaming, and I went back there, and he was on like the couch in the garage, and I'm just like holding his head and trying to see if he was still breathing, and I felt like I was holding someone that was not alive. And he pretty much, when you're in that state, you pretty much aren't alive. And I was just like, that whole day when the cops showed up and they had to Narcan him, and you're in like, your mind and your body is like frozen. You're like, is this it? Is this the end of it? And I think that was the time where I was like, how is this still happening? Because this was years. Like, this was not even in the beginning of it. This was almost like closer to the end of it. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And that was the time where I was just like, this is rock bottom. Like, this is, you're like 1 second. Like, if we didn't find him out there maybe if we waited 5 minutes to go out there, like, it might have been over there. So I think there were a couple times where I just felt like, how can we get him through this? How can he get through this? And it was...
Tell me about, with the experience that you had, the thoughts that you had, if you had to speak to a family member who was going through the same thing that you did with Nunzio, if you had to talk to the brother of somebody else going through the same thing, what would you explain to that brother that you know now that maybe you didn't when you were in the middle of it?
I think you have to take your emotions and your ego out of it. That was the hardest thing for me, was taking my emotion, and I felt like he was hurting the family, and I took that personal. I would take that out of it. Like, you have to put yourself in their shoes, and really it takes time and it takes effort to really think about what they're going through. And I think I could have done more of like actually researching like symptoms and things that they go through and things that they think and what a withdrawal feels like and what a withdrawal looks like. I had so much anger because of it. It was kind of tearing the family apart, and I took it too personal. So for somebody else that would be going through it, I would you really don't know what the person is feeling or experiencing. And I would say the pain of regret, I think, is something that I pray for forgiveness all the time, but it's something that it's really like the worst thing you can live with, because like you could have done the right thing, but maybe you didn't. Like I would have gone, looking back now, I would have gone to the end of the earth to try to make something happen and to try and help him. But I say that now looking back, but I know when you're in the moment, there are so many different things that are going on. So I think to somebody that's going through it, I think you have to take like a 30,000 foot view of the situation and take your feelings out of it and take your emotions and your ego, and it's not personal to you. You have to be completely selfless, and I think to make it work and to give it your best shot to live with no regret, you have to be like a servant leader of the family. Like you just have to do everything you can to serve them and try and help them. And I think that's the best way to lead maybe your family or to lead that person to help them with sobriety is to be selfless and to be a servant. So I think that's something I regret not doing more of.
How do you think you could use that concept of servant leadership, maybe not with Nunzio, but maybe with others? Is there a way that you could possibly?
Yeah, I think that's something that I always think about. Is my regret, I think, might be able to be rebutted with what I can do to help anybody. Like if I can help, there are people that I look at now that I know are alcoholics or have a substance abuse issue, and I look at it in a different light. Like I can't regret again that, like, I made that mistake once. So hopefully I can make changes for somebody else that I didn't make for him. And it hurts to say that, because it's like you messed it up with your brother, but you have to help somebody else. So I think that's like the chain of events that leads to the bigger picture of helping more people. It's like that's the sacrifice. It's one person for.
And my last question that I have for you is, I know in my heart that your brother is with us now. I know he's in this house. I know he is with us. I believe, because of my faith, that he is right here. What do you want to say to him directly? Just let it be. Yeah.
It's like part of my prayer every single day, but the only thing I can ask of him is for forgiveness for not doing my due diligence as his brother. Like I loved him so deeply that I think that I took the situation for granted. Like, all right, he'll get over it, he'll figure this out, and like we'll be okay. And it was like I regret that all the time, and I only pray for his forgiveness. Like, he knows how much I miss him, and the way I've looked at this thing is it's come like full circle. Like when I was younger, and my sister too, we were always like reaching for him with open arms. And then when this all happened, like he picked us up, he picked the whole family up like a tornado. Like everything was just all over the place all the time. And then towards the end of his life and his battle, he was always reaching for us with open arms, and like we weren't really there to accept it. And now I feel like recently I've been closing the gap between like my open arms and his open arms, and I do feel closer now than I have in so many years. And it's crazy to think that he's not physically here, and I feel way closer to him.